Greetings, everyone. You are live on YouTube.
Thanks, Michelle. Do we have everybody, Amanda?
I don't see Daniel. Unless I'm missing him.
Daniel make it in? Don't see him yet.
Mr. Chair, I see Daniel among the attendees.
Oh. There we go.
There we go. Had some technical difficulties with my email. Sorry.
No problem.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to call the Tuesday, July 21st, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting to order. This time with the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
of the United States of America
and
And to the republic
for
for which it stands,
one nation,
under
God, indivisible, with
with
liberty and
liberty and
justice for all. Mr. Thomas, or excuse me, Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Invocation.
Okay. Heavenly Father, we reach out to you tonight, looking for your blessing to give us the strength and the guidance to do what's best for our community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bear,
Present.
Commissioner Walls,
Present.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Present.
Commissioner Duckham,
Here.
Commissioner Plesky,
Here?
Commissioner Mahoney,
Present.
Commissioner Williams,
Present.
Commissioner Elwell,
Here.
Chairman Shotwell.
Here.
All present.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 2A, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Move from Duckham, supported by Kennedy. Any additions? Commissioner Bear.
When we get to the consent agenda, I have two items I would like to have moved.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any items to the regular agenda to be changed? All in favor, please show your hand sign. Those opposed? Duly carried. We have no awards and recognition. We have a letter of support for the non-motorized plan. Mike, is that just to receive or is that discussion for us? Okay. We have no special orders or public hearings. We've arrived at the first opportunity for public comment. Michelle, could you please recognize the people for public comment?
First, Brandy Wishman. Go ahead, Brandy.
I have nothing right now. I just signed up in case they needed to talk.
Okay. Nancy Smith.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name's Nancy Smith. I live in Liberty Township. I'm a candidate for State Representative District 65. Excuse my hoarse voice. I've been campaigning on the phone all afternoon. Just reflecting back on June's meeting, I wanted to say that these Michigan cities, Lansing, Flint, Pontiac, Port Huron, Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor, and Jackson have now passed resolutions declaring racism a public health crisis. These Michigan counties, Ingham, Eaton, Washtenaw, Kalamazoo, Genesee, and Wayne, have now passed resolutions declaring racism a public health crisis. But we're in Jackson County. The New York Times ran a story on July 18th about the history of Milwaukee County and city in Wisconsin passing resolutions over a year ago to declare racism a public health crisis, and how other U.S. local governments have done so since then. The story featured Jackson County, Michigan at the end of the article. It described the actions that 7 of you failed to take in June, and it even quoted the words of Commissioner Tony Baer from that meeting. As you remember, Mr. Baer, totally missing the point, used his platform that night to air his grievances of supposed white victimhood. The quote in the New York Times, "I do not like the feeling I get from this, that all white people are bad." So there we are in the New York Times. The actions that the 7 of you took last month were reprehensible on so many levels. Those of you that spoke out against the resolution on racism displayed condescension and ignorance. We have not forgotten. Citizens are still discussing your failure. Citizens say, vote them out. But sadly, some of you are running unopposed in the election. Shame on us for that. But we're watching and we're listening and we're doing what we can. People know which businesses you own, and many are choosing to vote with their wallets. You all may think that you managed to protect your turf and preserve the status quo last month, but this isn't over. Time will prove who was on the right side of the struggle and who got left behind. Thank you.
No further public comment.
We have no special meetings or standing committees. We're at the minutes, approval of the minutes of the June 16th, 2020, and
So
the
moved.
approval of the June 25th, 2020 special meeting minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion from Phil Duckham.
Mr. Chair, can we take them
Tony Baer.
separately?
Any items for correction?
Mr. Chair, I think the clerk requested that we take them separately.
Yes, please.
Fine. Tony, are you all right with making the motion for the minutes of the June 16th, 2020 meeting?
Yes, and I would ask one simple correction.
Go ahead.
At the top, it says board's agenda for June 16th. Can
Can't
we
hear
change that to board meeting or board minutes?
Okay, please strike the word agenda and put the word minutes in, please.
Yes.
Do we have a second for Tony? Corey Kennedy? So we're approval of the minutes of the June 16th, 2020 as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Duly carried. Approval of the June 25th, 2020 special meeting minutes. Moved by Commissioner Duckham, supported by Commissioner Williams. Any items for correction? Hearing nor seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Duly carried. We've arrived at the consent agenda. I need a motion first. Entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
So
Moved by Darius. Supported by Walls. Items for removal, please. Commissioner Bear.
Item 9E, Jackson County Department of Transportation, Jackson City and County Motorized Plan. Can we move that to new business?
No, sir. We'll be moving it to Standing Committees Report, Public Safety and Transportation.
Thank you. Also 9F, Jackson County Department of Transportation X51 report. I'd like to get some clarification on that, so if we could move that one also.
So the Act 51 shall become C. And your first item will become B. You have those, David?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Walls? Okay, we're all set. Any other items for removal from consent? Hearing none. I need the clerk to call the roll for the consent agenda as amended.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bear,
Yes.
Commissioner Walls,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Duckham,
Yes.
Commissioner Pileski,
Yes?
Commissioner Mahoney,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Elwell,
Yes.
Chairman Shotwell. Okay.
We've arrived at item 13, Standing Committees, Public Safety and Transportation, chaired by Commissioner David Elwell. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up, we have appointments. We have the Community Corrections Advisory Board. The first vacancy is a workforce development vacancy. There were no applicants at committee and therefore no recommendations. And if there are no recommendations from the floor, I'll move on to the second one. Hearing none. The second committee is also Community Corrections, and the seat is a criminal defense attorney. It's an indefinite appointment, as was the first one, and it was caused by a resignation. Again, there were no applicants at committee and therefore no recommendations. And if there are no nominations from the floor, I will move on. And that takes us to item B, which is for approval of the non-motorized trail plan, which I will so move.
And Darius support. Commissioner Bear.
I had requested a couple of days ago that one of the maps be available so it can be put on the screen at a much enlarged scale. Was that able to be accomplished?
Did you want it tonight, sir, or did you want it?
I had requested it for tonight for discussion to make it easy.
I don't believe it can be done at this time. Can it, Mike? Okay.
Michelle, are you able to do it? You able to expand it? Screenshot?
Mr. Chair, if I can interject, I think Tony was looking for a map that would zoom in and show greater detail at Keeley Park. Tony, is that accurate?
Correct. That's what I had requested. If that's cumbersome, I'll just do it by speak. That plan shows existing as well as proposed non-motorized trails. There is a planned non-motorized trail right through Cascades Golf Course. I don't believe anything exists there presently. At the fairgrounds, my personal concern is that north of North Street is the Armory Arts Walk that is constructed. A portion of the Armory Arts Walk continues south of North Street on the east side of the railroad track and the river. That extension of the Armory Arts Walk continues about halfway down that city block. So that is existing. We've paid for that pavement. The trail, the proposed new trail south of North Street and west of the river goes right through the fairgrounds. I still do not believe that that is an appropriate place for it. We don't have enough land at the fairgrounds to have this much land taken up for a walk. And being that we've got half of that distance already existing through the Armory Arts Walk, I would like the consultant that drew up this plan for us to modify this plan, bring it back showing the trail going through the fairgrounds eliminated and the Armory Arts Walk continued the other half of the way down the block. This will accomplish the exact same goals for the non-motorized surface walkways. If anybody is using that lower extension of the Armory Arts, they are within easy walking distance of the Keeley Park. If you want to go there for the chili cook-off, for the county fair, for the beer festival,
He's just
we
talking
can
right now.
we can get all those
All
people
he's doing, that's fine.
accessed onto the fairgrounds, onto Keeley Park, without losing real estate. We don't have enough to give up. So that's what I am requesting. If it's appropriate, I'll put that in the form of a motion. I move that the Jackson County Board of Commissioners instruct the consultant to remove the proposed non-motorized walkway from the plans where it goes through Keeley Park and instruct them to extend the southern reach of the Armory Arts Trail all the way down the rest of that block, down to Ganson Street.
Support.
How do you guys plan to pay for it?
Whatever funds were going to be earmarked for the trail through the entire length of the fairgrounds, we can use that exact same money to build half as much trail on the east side of the river, east side of railroad tracks by extending the
Tony,
Armory Arts Walk.
Tony, I'm not referring to building the trail. I'm asking you how you're gonna pay the consultant to remove the trail and transfer it all to the east. That's what I'm referring to, sir. We combined our dollars with the city to write this plan. So what I'm saying is that 2 years ago, when we started this plan, and when the suggestions were made to the community, and everyone was involved in this, and I requested, I went back and counted them in the minutes, 5 times that commissioners step up and review the non-motorized plan, nobody did. You're now at the 11th hour, and you want to change this plan that costs us money. I would like to know if you're going to allocate money to help pay for this, because people don't work for free.
Well, I
And I'd
personally
like
would
to know
ask,
where the money's going to come from. Commissioner Elwell had his hand up and then Commissioner Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was going to ask a couple of questions. One, what kind of a timeline are we on to approve this? Is it necessary and does it need to be approved tonight? Because another option, if not, would be to send it back to committee for further discussion. That's the A part of my question. Well, Tanya's on here, I see. Can somebody answer?
No, Tanya's here.
Tanya, do we have to have this approved tonight?
Good evening, commissioners. We are trying to work on bringing this project to a close to continue momentum. That is the way that we're looking at the completion of this project at this time. I will also note that the consultant put in over $20,000 extra of time to this project. So they're already out $20,000 to this project, just to make a note to what Chair Shotwell had said a little while ago. Thank you.
Okay, and then the second point I was going to make, Mr. Chair, is would it be inappropriate or appropriate to potentially have a second alternative for that part of the route that could potentially follow the route that Tony's talking about? But again, you're talking about more money to go back and redraw it. So those are my only two comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sitting on Region 2 Planning Commission now, and this particular plan was approved after some rather vigorous debate at Region 2 this past couple weeks ago. But I think what's relevant to this particular discussion and this motion, which I plan to oppose, by the way, is that it is simply conceptual. And when it comes to actually building any part of this trail, the sorts of details that Commissioner Bear has brought up, they're absolutely valid comments, will have to be defined more thoroughly and the plan refined more carefully. I think what's important tonight, though, is to approve the plan so that, as Tanya notes, we can move forward with grant applications, continued planning. So I plan to oppose the amendment, sir, because this needs to move along, and I ask other commissioners to also oppose the amendment. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Mahoney.
I just wanted to also add in that this plan was taken into account inside of also the Fair Grounds Master Plan. So we would also be looking at probably a redesign and some cost of redesigning that space there as well. So I just wanted to add that input if it helps.
Any other commissioners first time around? We'll go a second time. Commissioner Bear.
yeah, I noted that Tanya used the exact same word I used at our standing committee meeting. I said we need to change this plan now because the more momentum, as Tanya mentioned, the more momentum this picks up, the harder it's going to be to change it. And she said she wanted to continue this to keep the momentum going. To me, the momentum is going in the wrong direction. Before I was on the county commission, I attended the parks meetings. I reviewed the master plan. I reviewed this trail plan. I objected to it then. January, after I was sworn in, I talked to people and I reviewed this plan. I said, I do not like this plan. And I stated the same reasons I'm stating now. Okay, so for 3 years, I've been making these same comments. For 3 years, people are saying, it's just a concept. And the momentum keeps rolling on. Your momentum is just going to roll over the 4-H kids. That's what you're going to do. I would hope that some people will vote for me and reject this plan.
So is there any other commissioner comments? We're voting on Commissioner Bear's amendment at this time, supported by Commissioner Kennedy. Is Does anyone have any other comments they'd like to make? Commissioner Kennedy.
Not a comment, but more of a question. What would be the cost associated with just doing that simple change that Commissioner Bear is proposing? I know you're not going to have an exact amount. But could you give me a rough estimate?
General question. I can't answer that, Corey. I'm sorry, personally. I don't know what it costs to hire a consultant to write a plan like this.
Mr. Overton, would you have a rough estimate?
In all honesty, I don't know what it would cost. I can't imagine it would cost too much at all, frankly, but at the same time, it does have implications for, as Commissioner Mahoney said, to the Keeley Park plan as well. So there is some cost for sure.
Well, it also has costs involved with the Governor's Iron Trail and with the Blue Water Trail because it crosses back and forth there. It is involved in all of this. I think we're at voting unless someone else would like to speak.
I do, Mr. Chair.
Starting with Commissioner Duckham, then Commissioner Elwell. And remember, some people are on their first time, but this is the second time through.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to bring attention to the fact that the fair is here 5-6 days a year. The trail is there continuously, year round, and I think amply they could share the same space. I don't care if you got to put a gate in the side of the livestock barn, let them walk through it. We're talking about not using the footage or using the footage, and I'd rather use it year round and save some of this space just for a 6-day fair. I got to remember the fair is at Keeley Park. And this isn't fair territory, this is Keeley Park territory. And if we have to share some footage, so be it. So I'll be voting against the plan. Or the motion, excuse me.
I believe Commissioner Williams and then Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. We've been working on this project for some time now. And I want to say, if I remember correctly, and if someone could correct me if I'm wrong, at the last Region 2 meeting, wasn't it determined that the fairgrounds, or in terms of the 4-H program, that with the expansion of the project that we're working on, would not interfere with what they're doing? Is that correct? I want to say, because I know we went round for round and on this thought at our last meeting, and I thought the end result of that is that it wouldn't interfere with what they were doing.
That's correct. It was going to work its way through the Keeley Park without interfering with the 4-H.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Elwell, did you have anything?
I did, Mr. Chair. I was also going to ask one last question, which is, if we approve this plan tonight, is there anything that would keep us from going in a month from now, 2 months from now, if there were enough votes to do it, to modify the plan? That's the A part of the question.
My understanding is no. We could modify the plan at any time, but there is a cost involved each time we want to modify the plan. Whereas we could vote down a trail if someone decides to start to try to fund one through it.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that we should do that, but that would give Commissioner Bear the opportunity to talk with Tanya and Administrator Overton to find out what it would cost to redesign an alternate B potentially. But that's just something to keep in mind. If it's as easy as going back like that to change the plan, then that may be more reasonable. But I'll be opposing the amendment as well, and I'll be voting for the main motion. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Remember, Commissioner Bear, you've spoken twice, sir. So at this time, we're going to go to
There's a
the
rule,
vote.
I can't speak 3 times?
No, sir, we're gonna try to follow the rules like has been suggested and stay with them. So at this time, we're going to vote on your amendment. You have a motion, support from Commissioner Kennedy. Is there any further questions to the motion?
Couple
Those
questions
in
were
favor, Commissioner Bear.
having developed plans like this as a
Commissioner
professional.
Bear, you're to ask a question to the motion, sir.
Pardon me?
You need to ask a question to the motion.
I can give you a pretty good answer on the cost.
I appreciate that, sir, but I'm asking you to speak to the motion now.
Okay, I've seen the master plan.
Commissioner Bear, please speak to the motion.
I don't know what you're getting at, Chairman. I am speaking about this.
No, you're
topic.
answering questions to what's involved in getting us here. The question to the motion would be a clarification of the motion, or who voted, made the motion or supported the motion, or what the amendment would change within the document. You're not to speak to the other items.
All right, next time I get the floor, I'll just keep going longer.
So again, we're at voting. Those in favor of the amendment made by Commissioner Bear, please show your sign. Those opposed to the motion. Did you record that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And the vote was?
3 yays and 5 nays. 6 nays, sorry.
Thank you.
Correct. You're welcome.
So now we're at the J.C. Jackson City County Non-Motorized Trail Plan. Need a motion for it to be voted on.
So moved.
We have a motion and by Commissioner Elwell, supported by Commissioner Duckham. Any questions to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Babe, I did not get that.
6-3. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is for, and also move for approval of the Act 51 report and authorizing the chair of our board to sign the cover sheet for fiscal year 2019.
You have support? Supported by Commissioner Pileski. Questions? Commissioner Bear.
Just a question on what is page 15 of 32 in the report. It specifies monies that are required to be spent on non-motorized trails. I'm not sure I'm interpreting these numbers correctly, and the numbers got corrected. So the way this sheet looks now, we've got $1,807,000, a little more dollars. Is that the number that must be spent under state statute for non-motorized trails this coming year? Or what does that number really represent?
Christopher Bolt, could you answer that, please?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
What this is a requirement within Act 51 that over a 10-year average, and what happens in the report is it requires you to stipulate your expenditures for each year over 10 years. So you see years 2010 through 2019 listed as to what expenditures were made for non-motorized improvements. and you get a total of 2.44 million. And then we have to apply the test to satisfy the auditor's requirement. And you see there that our Act 51, our MTF returns, 10% of those multiplied by 10 is 1.8 million. So we satisfy that test. Hope that answers your question, Commissioner Bear.
So this 1,807,000 that needs to be spent over a 10-year period?
No, the 10-year average must equal or exceed it. So our 10-year average is 2.446 million on line 242.
Okay.
The 1.8 million is the minimum. If we're under that, then we fail the test, and then we have to bring it back into compliance quickly.
Okay, so we're going to be expected to spend $244,000 a year for the next 10 years for non-motorized trails.
No, actually, no. Our average over 10 years, our total expenditures over 10 years must equal or exceed 1.8 million. So you see that next year, 2010 will fall off, only $7,200. Then in 2021, 2011 will fall off. So we're actually quite safe for a while as long as we continuously invest, 100,000 or so. We can actually run a projection so that we know what we need to spend each year. We just have to spend over 10 years. The sum of those 10 years has to exceed 1.81 million. Does that make sense?
What are we planning on spending next year?
Well, we could spend zero if the board so chooses, but I can tell you right now in 2020, one potential project would be McDivitt Avenue. We have the need for a 10-foot wide trail to be built on the north edge of that project. So that would be approximately 300 or 400,000 that could be applied towards the 2020 amount, which would help keep our average above water at least that 1.81 million. That's one that comes to mind. At this moment, I don't have any others in my mind, but I can tell you that when we widen roads and add a paved shoulder, that can be considered as part of the cost for non-motorized. So for example, if we did a $100,000 road project and $10,000 is what it costs to widen it and have those paved shoulders, we can include that extra $10,000 cost, just the $10,000, not the actual road. We can include that in the costs for non-motorized.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bolt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, if you're still on, so quick math, we have actually spent $600,000 more than necessary to maintain that average, correct?
That is correct. And you can see in 2018, we had a big year at well over $1 million, and that was because of the Ann Arbor Road Trail. Otherwise, we would not have met the average.
And therefore, using it as a 10-year rolling average, we could choose to reduce it in the future to not spend as much as we normally would on the non-motorized path, and therefore use that money more on roads, correct?
Absolutely, yes. And in fact, we need to remember that most of our money is spent on roads. This is actually not much out of our budget, but that's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Hearing none. Seeing none. All in favor, please show the sign. Those opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Elwell.
That's all I have to report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Standing Committee Human Services chaired by Daniel Mahoney. Commissioner Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Human Services Committee has one item of business to take care of today, and that is an appointment to Sanitary Code Board of Appeals. We've got one applicant for the licensed sewage system installer. and Greg Warblow. The committee recommended Mr. Greg Warblow.
I'll motion to appoint.
Any nominations from the floor? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Mahoney.
That concludes the business of the Human Services Committee tonight.
At this time, we've arrived at Standing Committee General Government chaired by Commissioner Duckham. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have one item of business tonight. That would be appointments to the Anti-Discrimination Committee.
At this time, at the behest of the Chair of General Government, I'm going to work our way through this together as Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. So with that, I will look to the first person that has been nominated for one of the four positions, Mr. Hindenburg. Are there any nominations from the floor? Mr. Williams.
I'm sorry, I'd like to nominate Keisha Hamilton.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, Darius.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Keisha Hamilton.
Any other nominations from the floor? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Walls,
Heidenberg.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Heidenberg.
Commissioner Duckham,
Heidenberg.
Commissioner Plesky,
Heidenberg.
Commissioner Mahoney,
Hamilton.
Commissioner Williams,
Hamilton.
Commissioner Elwell,
Heidenberg.
Commissioner Bear,
Heidenberg.
Chairman Shotwell.
Heidenberg.
Heidenberg, 7, Hamilton, 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next nomination is Mr. Beta. That's one that came out of committee. Any nominations from the floor? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Duly carried. Next nomination out of committee, Ms. Herr. Any nominations from the floor?
I would nominate Kareem Johnson.
Any other nominations from the floor? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Kennedy,
Kareem Johnson.
Commissioner Duckham,
Herr.
Commissioner Plesky,
Herr.
Commissioner Mahoney,
Johnson.
Commissioner Williams,
Johnson.
Commissioner Elwell,
Herr.
Commissioner Bear,
Herr.
Commissioner Walls,
Kerr.
Chairman Shotwell.
Herr.
3 Johnson, 5 Harrington, or her, sorry.
Herr wins. Nomination from the floor, excuse me, from the committee is Mr. Camacho. Any nominations from the floor? Commissioner Mahoney.
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Kareem Johnson.
Johnson again. Any other nominations from the floor? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Duckham,
Camacho,
Commissioner Plesky,
Camacho,
Commissioner Mahoney,
Johnson.
Commissioner Williams,
Johnson.
Commissioner Elwell,
Camacho,
Commissioner Bear,
Camacho,
Commissioner Walls,
Camacho,
Commissioner Kennedy,
Camacho,
Chairman Shotwell.
Camacho.
7 Camacho, 2 Johnson.
Next up are the commissioner nominations. At this time, Darius Williams comes out of committee. Any other nominations? All in favor? The second nomination is Corey Kennedy. Any other nominations? All in favor? Opposed? Duly carried. The third nomination is Earl Pileski. Any other nominations? All in favor? Opposed? It passes. So the commissioner representatives are Darius Williams, Earl Pileski, and Corey Kennedy. And the citizens are Heidenberg, Beta, Herr, and Camacho, which are the recommendations out of committee. That completes this time appointments for general government.
that's
Mr.
all we have
Duckham.
tonight, Mr. Chair. That's all we have tonight, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any unfinished business? Any new business? We've arrived at public comment. Michelle?
Nancy Smith.
Nothing else to say. Thank you.
That would be all for public comment.
Okay, any commissioner comments? Commissioner Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, again, express my disappointment for yet another poor decision. I don't feel like we made a good selection for individuals to go on the committee that we just created. I'm just curious, like what, and I mean, nobody owes me an answer, but you owe your constituents an answer. And I'm curious what criteria you based your decision off of. In the process, you made the decision for the 4 individuals from our public that you selected to go onto this committee, because it definitely was not based off of experience in the area in which we're asking them to complete a task. However, I've already experienced the ultimate disappointment with this group. So at this point, I don't think there's much else that can be done to shock or surprise me with the decisions that are made by this body of government. And that would be my input. And I hope the best to this committee, that they are all dedicated to a real outcome with that'll have a real effect on the intimidated by or bullied by the overarching agenda of this body and influenced by them, but put together the best committee possible. And I am getting messages from some citizens who are saying that they did try to get in for public comment, probably specifically about one of the candidates that you guys saw fit to support. But once again, that's not for me to be answered to about. That's on you guys to answer to. So thank you very much.
Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As chair of the committee, we strive for diversity. I'd like to point out we picked a minister, we picked a female, we picked an Hispanic, and a man of color. If I want to say that correctly, a man of color. So it's a very well-rounded committee. And then with the commissioner or the commissioners we have serving on it, I think it's a very well thought out and selected committee. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, I just want to just say that I hope that as we continue to move forward with the process, writing this policy, that we would be sure to keep the voice of the community first in that, and that we would not use this as an opportunity to promote party, but what's best for the citizens of the community. I also want to continue to stress, as we have before, that although I am honored to be able to work on policy, but this was not the original act. Although this discrimination certainly is a problem in Jackson County, and so it is good that we are addressing it. But the original ask was for a greater measure of equality. And so as we continue to move forward, I'm hoping this community, or that this body of elected officials and future elected officials will continue to see the importance of the issue, and that we would work together to make sure that we are making Jackson County a more equitable place to be. So let's continue to keep our constituents first, because that's why we're here. They saw fit for us to be able to serve in these various capacities. So I want us to be able to make sure that as we put this policy together and all other projects, that we keep their voice, that we keep their input at the forefront of everything we do, and not just ride the political and party decisions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like my acknowledgements to be reflected in that.
Commissioner Kennedy.
I'd just like to say, I did not solicit to be on this committee, in all honesty. But I am going to give my sincerest effort to correct some things. I spent some time talking to Commissioner Mahoney, and I've listened to his concerns, particularly when it comes to promotions and having some diversity up in some of those positions. So I want everyone to know that I am going to be giving my most sincere effort to make some positive changes in Jackson County. And I hope everybody gives the committee a fair shot, to let it work and see what can be developed in terms of a hiring and promotion policy of anti-discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Seeing none. Oh, Commissioner Mahoney, did you want to speak again?
Yes, please, Mr. Chair. I just had one more short comment. that I would like reflected in the minutes, that the board unanimously supported a motion for the county to entertain a equity policy. So while I sincerely appreciate and will fully support a discrimination or anti-discrimination policy, a equity policy is much different and equally deserving and equally important. And I would still like to see that. Thank you very much.
Any other commissioners? Entertain a motion to adjourn? Supported? All in favor? Those opposed? Duly carried. Thank you.